Great. Thank you all for joining us today for our conversation this afternoon on creating a plan to promote free tax preparation services to taxpayers with disabilities. And thank you for joining us. My name is Michael Roush, and I am with the National Disability Institute. Before we get started with our webinar, we are going to go over some housekeeping tips. Next slide, please. If you're listening to the webinar, the audio for today's meeting can be accessed using computer audio or by calling in by phone. If you select computer audio, please make sure your speakers are turned on or your headphones are plugged in. If you do not have sound capabilities on your computer or prefer to listen by phone, please dial 1-929-205-6099 and enter the meeting code 836-6808-6113. Next slide, please. Captioning. Real-time captioning is provided during this webinar. The captions can be found by clicking on the CC button in your Zoom controls at the bottom of the screen. Next slide. Submitting questions. We will have Q&A at the end of the webinar. Please use the Q&A box to submit any questions you have during the webinar, and we will direct them accordingly. If your question is not answered during the webinar, or you're listening by phone and not logged in, you may email Kish Pisani at kpisani@ndi-inc.org. Please note that for the Q&A portion, that we do ask attendees, if you do have a question, please do not share any personal identifiable information or provide any questions that are individualized in scope, as we will not be able to answer those during the webinar. So an important piece to note. All right, next slide. Technical assistance. If you experience any technical difficulties during the webinar, please use the chat box to send a message to the NDI host or email to Kish Pisani at kpisani@ndi-inc.org. Please note, this webinar is being recorded and the materials will be placed on the National Disability Institute website at www.nationaldisabilityinstitute.org/resources/webinars. Next slide, please. Great. So as I mentioned, my name is Michael Roush, and I'm the Director of the Center for Disability Inclusive Community Development at the National Disability Institute. Next slide. If you are new to knowing about the National Disability Institute, and this is your first time to an NDI webinar, welcome. The National Disability Institute is a national nonprofit organization where we are dedicated to building a better economic future for people with disabilities. The National Disability Institute is the first national organization committed exclusively to championing economic empowerment, financial education, asset development, and financial stability for all persons with disabilities. National Disability Institute affects change through public education, policy development, training, technical assistance, and innovative initiatives. To learn more about the National Disability Institute, please go to www.nationaldisabilityinstitute.org. Another key piece about the work at the National Disability Institute is from the very beginning, taxes was a key piece when we would work towards championing economic empowerment for individuals with disabilities. And this important topic on free tax preparation services and favorable tax credit has been a leading part of the National Disability Institute's work. This work and today's webinar, actually next slide, is today's webinar is sponsored with support from Share Our Strength. We'd like to say thank you to Share Our Strength, who is providing support to increase the awareness on favorable tax credits and free tax preparation services to taxpayers with disabilities. So we thank them for their support for today's webinar. So before we get into the key piece, what we're here to talk about today about creating a plan to promote free tax preparation services for taxpayers with disabilities, we wanted to ask you a couple polling questions just to see, get some insight from all of you today. So the first question is, do you or your organization currently promote free tax preparation services? The polling question will pop up. Ashley, is it popping up? There we go. So here are the two questions. One, do you or your organization currently promote free tax preparation services? Please mark yes or no. And the second question is, how familiar are you with locating a free tax preparation site in your area? Are you very familiar, somewhat familiar, or not familiar at all? So please take a few seconds and make your selections now. Another couple seconds. You can answer both questions. All right, Ashley, is people still answering, or can we close out the poll? Great. Great. So it looks like 61% are promoting free tax preparation services, with 39% saying no. And 20% said you're not familiar with how to locate a free tax preparation site. And 34% said somewhat familiar. Great. And 46% said very familiar. Great. Well, thank you for sharing a little bit of answering these two polling questions for us. So next slide, please. And we can go to the next slide. So as we sit and have this conversation about creating a plan, it's never too early for us to start talking about the next tax season. Many free tax preparation sites across the country are beginning to prepare for the 2023 opening of filing season. And so today we're going to be looking at a variety of ways that individuals and organizations can begin to look at what that plan might look like. We're very fortunate to have a longtime friend to the National Disability Institute, to have Don Dill, who's the Senior Tax Analyst with the SPEC headquarters of National Partnerships at the Internal Revenue Service. And at the beginning, when I was talking about NDI's early work regarding taxes, Don was a part of that very early work. And so we welcome Don to today's presentation to share with us this excellent information on how organizations and individuals can begin to create that plan to promote free tax preparation services. So with that, Don, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Michael, thank you so much. What a pleasure to be with all of you today. Thank you so much for taking your time. I know it's starting to get to be a busy time of the year, and so we appreciate your time, appreciate you joining us, and hopefully this information will be, as Michael said, very timely. It's for somebody who's been in the tax business for a long time, I hate to say taxes are just around the corner, but they are. We'll be in January before you know it. So anyway, thank you so much for joining. First and foremost, I want to thank my wonderful friends at the National Disability Institute. They have been a tremendous partner with us in this arena of free tax preparation and outreach and education and financial capabilities for nearly 20 years. And it's been an incredible collaboration. And I want to thank them for all their work and look forward to working with them and for the next 20 more years. So thank you so much for having me on this presentation. I'm really excited to talk to you today. I'll go down to the next slide and show you what I really plan on covering today. I want to give you a little bit more about the department from which I work in the IRS. I know there's a lot of IRS stuff floating around in the news media this day. I'm from the part that's here to help. And I don't carry a gun and I won't carry a gun, but I want to give you a little bit of where I come from in the IRS because we're a big organization. And then I'll start talking to you about this topic of our presentation about, free tax preparation service in your community, why it's important, what kind of messages you can share. And then we really wanted to take you to a kind of a new level. And hopefully some of you on the call, and I appreciate you filling out the survey that really gives me an indicator of who we have on the call. So thank you. But I want to, probably maybe go into some new arenas for some of you. Maybe you want to become a VITA TCE volunteer. I'll talk to you how important that is to us, how important it is to the entire program. It is you'll hear later in my presentation, these free tax preparation services in your community are 100% led by volunteers. So we need you if this is something that would interest you. And then really for some of you on the call with us today on the session, hoping you might consider operating a free tax preparation site. And I apologize for using the acronyms before I describe them in there, but those are our two programs, the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program and the Tax Counseling for the Elderly, both of our free tax preparation programs. And I'll talk a little bit about maybe your organization becoming a host to one of these sites in your community if there's a gap in service where you are residing or where you're operating. We'd love to give you some more information about that, something you can consider as you think ahead on how best to serve not only your clients, but your community. And then, of course, don't want to leave you without giving you some resources. So looking forward to our conversation today. And as Michael said, hopefully we'll have time at the end for questions and comments. So if you have those, if you want to put them in the chat, that'd be great. So I'll press on to the next slide and start giving you some background about who I work for in the IRS. And I work for a department called the Stakeholder Partnerships, Education and Communication Division. And for those of you who have worked with the IRS or probably any government agency, and I know many of you have, we all love acronyms, and we're called SPEC. And it's kind of appropriate because we're a very small organization within the IRS. You probably know people at the IRS and you ask them, have you ever heard of SPEC? And they probably haven't. We're an organization of about 300 people within the IRS, which has about 70,000. So you can tell it's a small unit. But our mission is to assist taxpayers, and we call them customers, in satisfying their tax responsibilities. And we're going to do this by building and maintaining partnerships with key stakeholders around the country. And together, we're going to leverage resources to inform, educate, and communicate with our customers. If you're looking at that, you're going, boy, that's a pretty lofty mission, and it is. But the key for us, as you'll hear in the next few slides and as we talk the remainder of the presentation, the only way we can do this successfully is working with great partners like the National Disability Institute, like those of you on our call today. And so you'll hear more about how we can collaborate to get this work done, because This might not come to surprise to some of you, but the IRS is not the most trusted source of information, or maybe not even if those who trust us, a lot of folks are scared of us. So having these wonderful partnerships with community organizations that have trust and access to the customers we need to get to is how we make this successful, how we meet our mission, so to speak. So I'll go on to the next slide. And as we're trying to complete our mission, you'll see there that we are focused. Obviously, we want to educate and communicate with all taxpayers, but we have special focus on what we call our target populations, and those are low to moderate income taxpayers. And I know that's a nebulous term there. And so what we try to say that means for people who are within what we call the EITC income threshold, which is somewhere around the neighborhood of $70,000 per year. Then we also target senior citizens, obviously persons with disabilities, why we've had this wonderful long-term relationship with National Disability Institute. Also those with limited English proficiency and Native Americans. And what we're going to do within this organization is, like I said, we're going to try to educate people about the information they need to complete their tax responsibilities. And we're going to deliver that through a series of key messages. And as I said, we'll try most often is through collaboration to get those messages out into the community. So I'll jump to the next slide. As I've talked about already, you've heard that we call the work we do a leveraged approach, where we want to get in collaboration with partners and individuals and volunteers, and together use our resources in the most effective way. So what we like to say within our SPEC division is we try to be, if you will, silent partner, provide you and those who partner with us key resources they need to get their job done, letting them take the shine as the person providing the service, so that the people who need it are more willing to reach out and access those resources. And as I mentioned, I've been very privileged and honored to work with NDI for many years, and the work they have done has just been an extraordinary, has really led us to places in terms of providing information to persons with disabilities that we just simply could not have gotten to without them. And so we thank them and our deep appreciation for all their support over the years. So I'll move on to the next slide. So as we get ready to transition a little bit more into the purpose of this presentation about talking about promoting free tax preparation services, I wanted to give you just a little bit more about these services that I've mentioned to you. Our VITA, that again, volunteer income tax assistance, and TCE, tax counseling for the elderly. Those are our two main programs through which we provide free tax service to those who are eligible and who are underserved. And just to give you a glimpse of how much impact these two programs have, last filing season, and that's a kind of a misnomer, that would be from January through April of this past year, 2022, excuse me, we had about 6,000 free tax preparation sites in all 50 states and the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. And they were manned by nearly 60,000 volunteers who gave their time, provided expertise and experience to help people get their taxes done for free. And what a wonderful gift they provided. We helped over 2.1 million individuals file federal tax returns. That included nearly 244,000 individuals who self-identified themselves as a person with disability when we were helping them get their return completed. Not only do we help them with their federal returns, but in the places in the states where there are state returns required, those individuals help them also complete their state tax return, another wonderful gift. We try to do it almost exclusively. You see there, we'd almost like to see that 100% electronic filing rate, but there are some times where paper filing is required, but we provide free electronic filing, which helps expedite the processing of the return, and more importantly, through that expedition of their filing, also helps get their refund quicker, and that is very important. And there's a sign of what this program, these two programs, bring back into the communities that we serve. Last year, our number was just over, as you see, $2.7 billion in federal refunds given out to those 2.1 million people we serve. And in addition, another 353 million in state refunds. So collectively, nearly $3 billion back to individuals that we served. And I always like to remind here, as you're on here, and I know most of you are working in your community as a service provider, when we talk about bringing this $3 billion back, absolutely, it's a tremendous benefit to those 2.1 million individuals, but it's also a great benefit to your community, because these $3 billion of refunds are going to be spent locally. Most of the refunds we give out are to working people who have bills and necessities at home. And so that money is spent locally at local retailers, local restaurants. And so that money has a tremendous multiplier effect. So when you think about doing free tax prep, it's not only just helping those you serve directly, but it is a wonderful indirect help to your community. We've had studies over the years say that the multiplier effect is about 3 to 1. So for every dollar you bring back to your community through a refund to one of those you serve, it's really bringing $3 back in. So this is a wonderful opportunity. So let's start on the next slide. Let's start talking about what you can do to promote free tax preparation services in your community. And on the next slide, you'll see probably some of you are wondering, some of you, somewhere around 40% have not really been promoting, and, based on our poll, and 20% have not really heard about free sites. And I know probably some of you are thinking, why do I want to get involved in taxes? It's complicated. I'm not, thinking, and I'm thinking what you might be thinking. I'm not particularly happy to do it myself, and I'm fearful of doing it myself. I have somebody help me. And so all those are very valid points, but what we have to take into account for those who are providing services to those who are underserved, that tax time is just a critical financial catalyst for those we are serving. For most taxpayers, almost all that we're going to serve within our VITA and TCE programs, a tax refund is the single largest source of income they're going to receive in any given year. And I think it's easy to say that whenever somebody has money, when we're talking to somebody, and you're going to see on a couple of my slides downstream here in a moment or two, we're talking upwards of multiple thousands of dollars, anywhere maybe up to $10,000, depending on the family you're serving. What would be a better time to talk to them about financial capabilities, about financial education, asset building, investing in their future, than at a time when they have money? And so we have all in this world of free tax preparation have all bounded together about this opportunity that tax time is. And so if we can reach people, get them to these free services, we can then provide them opportunities on ways to save, way to build assets, and to increase their financial stability. So as we go on to the next slide, I just want to kind of give you, for those of you who may be not familiar, I know probably some of you were with us last time when we talked about these credits in more detail, and I'm sure Michael at the end can tell you how to get back to that presentation if you didn't catch that presentation, want to learn more about these credits. But there are significant credits for those taxpayers, as you saw in our target population, the moderate to low income, persons with disabilities, the elderly, English as a second language. And these are just a few of them. And I just wanted to give you kind of an opportunity to see what they are and the potential money we're talking about that may be eligible, the taxpayers you serve may be eligible for. So first is the child tax credit. And now I'm giving you next year's number for those who were on our call last time or who have been working with the child tax credit, that this tax year that just passed, and technically we usually think this tax season ends around October 15th after extension. So in that year, last tax year, the credit was more than 2,000. But as we start talking ahead towards filing 2022 tax returns starting in January of 2023, I don't want to mislead you. The credit dips back. It was only a 1-year increase when it was up to 3,000 for children over 5 and 3,600 for children under the age of 5. But 2,000 is still a wonderful consolation gift, if you will. So we've got the child tax credit, potentially up to $2,000 per child. If we have a family that we're serving with these children and that income in that range, I said around below 70,000, there's potential that they could have an earned income tax credit that for next filing season, the maximum is going to be $7,430 for a family with 3 or more qualifying children. Now, again, I don't want to mislead you. The credit can go from $1 to $7,430, but I wanted to show you the opportunity. There's also a credit. I know, particularly for persons with disabilities, often they might not have children, but there is still a credit for individuals with no children under the earned income tax credit, and it slides back down to its number of $600. But again, $600 can make a tremendous difference in the individuals' lives we're serving. And so I'll go on to the next slide. If those weren't enough, there's a couple more credits, and there's one that we talked about last time called the Child and Dependent Care Credit. Simply a credit that you can apply for if you expend money to care for a child as you work or look for work, and that includes a child with a disability. Again, a credit of up to $1,050 for one, $2,100 for 2 or more children. Again, these are the lower numbers. If you have individuals we'll get to at the end who haven't filed for this past year and weren't sure about it, maybe somebody told them they didn't have to, these credits were significantly larger for this past year. So I'd really recommend you having them look back. And so now what I wanted to tell you, and again, we're not really doing this today on getting you full tax knowledge, but I want to let you know most of these credits that I just talked about are either partially or totally refundable. And I'll try to just give you a slight example or a small example in case that terminology is new to you. So as I talked about, for example, on the last page, if somebody who's got a $7,000 earned income tax credit, most of you probably are used to taxes saying, hey, I can only have a credit. It would take my tax liability to zero. And therefore, if I didn't have $7,000, I really wasn't getting the full benefit of the earned income tax credit that I was eligible for. But in the case of these partially and totally refundable credits, that's what they are. So if you have an individual that gets a $7,000 earned income tax credit, they only owed $2,000. The rest of the money, the $5,000, would be refunded to them as what we call a totally refundable credit. So you can see that we shouldn't be thinking, I don't want to file, there's no need for me to file because I don't have a tax liability. Well, some of these credits are refundable. So even if you have no tax liability, you still could get money back from the IRS. So 2 things we want you to think about now that you've heard about the credits and the potential for a refund is one, again, moving towards next year, unfortunately, you're going to have some earned income in order to be eligible for most of these credits. And I know I'm talking in tax speak here, but earned income is just simply wages, W-2 income, money you make at your job, or if you own your own business, run a self-employment business, we call that. That's the net profit from that is also earned income. But the most important thing I want you to take from today's conversation about taxes is that in order to get any of these credits, when you have the earned income credit or the earned income to qualify for them, you must file a tax return. The way to get them is through the tax return. And I would love to tell you that the IRS will reach out to you or reach out to your client or your customer or your family member and say, hey, we wanted to give you the earned income tax credit, but unless you file, we won't. So please take that as something moving forward to make sure you're always talking to those you serve, to your clients, your customers, even your family members. That filing is important and should be done to see if you're entitled to any other credits. So now let's start talking about how we can utilize this information and get messages out there to those you serve. So, of course, I want to let you know that completing a tax return for many Americans, not just those in our target population, even those who serve, is a very challenging and confusing ordeal. Taxes are complicated. I understand that. I'm a tax accountant. And unfortunately, they're ever changing as I'm kind of trying to toe the line here between what we had in this past year and what we're going to have in the next year. The taxes are changing, so it does make it even more cumbersome and more complicated and fearful. And then we always have to try to mitigate some tax myths that are out there. That one is that you're not required to file. And I don't want to tell you that that's not true. There are cases where you're not required to file if you don't have income below a certain threshold. It's about $14,000. You're not required to file a return. But I hope you remember just from last slide, in order to access those credits I talked about, you have to file. So even if you have income of $5,000, you'll probably be entitled to an earned income tax credit, but you must file. So my encouragement, again, and I don't mean to harp on this, but always encourage those you serve to file. I'll give you just one point, even if they don't wind up getting some of these credits. By filing a tax return, you quite simply stop somebody else from stealing your identity and filing a return on your own. Once somebody files a tax return under a Social Security number, that Social Security number is locked from an IRS perspective. So if somebody steals your identity and tries to file a tax return, our system will say a return's already been filed with that Social Security number and won't allow it. So to me, even if you're not entitled to some of these credits, it's still worthy of doing that. And of course, I know there's always the possibility, and I'm not going to tell you that there's not some instances where an individual might lose some of their government benefits if they file a tax return, but there are information I know Michael and his colleagues can share better with you about the opportunities to spend down some of those refunds within the time frame so that benefits aren't lost. But again, I don't believe that's one of the things that we should stop people from filing for when there's a potential for them to get significant amounts of tax refunds back to them. And then last but not least, I want to let you know about, I hope you know, and I'm sure you do, that tax preparation is often expensive and more worrisome to all of us who are trying to serve is it can often be predatory. Individuals are desperate for their money, and individuals who do this work, some of them are not above board and use that opportunity to charge exorbitant rates to get the return done, charge money to get their refund paid in advance. And those can be upwards of hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. And again, when we're talking about people making relatively low income, to lose a large percentage of their refund to tax preparation when we have high quality free tax preparation available around the country is just something I think we should all be working to avoid. So those are a couple of things about why we should be doing messages. We'll move on to the next slide and give you a little bit more about these two programs just to make you feel more comfortable about why you're promoting them. They're both IRS sponsored volunteer income tax assistance. We call it VITA. Again, we love acronyms. It's been around since 1969, and it is sponsored by us here at the IRS. We help train, provide resources. But the important part is it's operated by community-based and nonprofit organizations all around the country. They provide the place to get it done. They provide the trust in the community. Oftentimes they provide volunteers, but you're not going to see this at an IRS location. You're going to see it, at a library or at a United Way or at your local church or a senior center. Those are where we try to establish these sites. And then again, all the returns are completed by IRS certified volunteers. Before anybody can complete one tax return, they have to complete a series of certification tests that the IRS creates and that we monitor and grade. And so every individual volunteer providing free tax preparation services in your community is trained and certified by us. And I can tell you with much pride that our quality rates have always exceeded those in the paid preparation community. And we're very proud of those, and so are our partners. So let me jump to the next slide and give you about tax counseling for the elderly, another program sponsored by the IRS. This has been around since 1978. The little difference here is that they're focused a little bit more on providing tax preparation for individuals 60 years and older. They will provide tax preparation for anybody, but they do receive extra training for issues related to that older taxpayers have, retirement, pensions. But again, they will serve anybody. The majority of what we call our TCE sites are operated by our great partner, the ARP Foundation Tax Aid Program. And as you see there, if you recall, they've started before we did back in 1968, and they've done tens of millions of free tax returns over their 50+ years. Again, all the volunteers within the TCE program are also certified by the IRS. So we'll move down to the next slide and talk about what you can do. So one is we'll just hope if your resources are such, we hope you'll just educate those that you interact with on the benefits of filing a tax return. I've given you a couple about, one about identity theft, but two, more importantly, about the potential for credits that they may be entitled to based on having earned income and having children and other information. So when we talk about this, we hope you'll do it in many different ways. When we talk about educating and informing, one would be simply to make sure that all of your employees, everybody who interacts with the public, knows a little bit about tax preparation, about the catalyst that can be for financial stability, but to know that they should recommend to people that they should file. And then we'll talk more about they can then provide them information about local free tax preparation in your community. And we certainly would, if you have the opportunity to share it with other community providers that you work with, that would be wonderful. Of course, all the individuals and families you work with would be a great source to provide this information to. And then last but not least, when we're talking about the disability community, we want to make sure you put that word out with caregivers to make sure they're aware of the benefits that might be out there and the free tax preparation services that are available, hopefully, in your community. And so I'll jump to the next slide. And I wanted to just kind of give you the timeframes of what we're talking about for free tax preparation. Again, our sites, these VITA and TCE sites, are open historically from late January till just around April 15th. Some probably go a little bit longer. So you've got a couple months till we start ramping up this work. And again, as we said, somewhere between the $60,000 and $70,000 range are those who you really want to be telling. That's who we're trying to reach, that low to moderate income definition. And then here's two places that I'll serve to you as a resource as sites go up. And I know that our timing's a little bit off, but these slides I saw pop through the chat, we will absolutely be shared with you. But these will be your two main tools as we get into early January, as we turn over a new year and you start wanting to provide information to your clients and those you serve. Here's a VITA TCE site locator that's housed on the IRS website at irs.gov. And then our friends at ARP Foundation also provide information on their website at the ARP Foundation Tax Aid website about where their sites are located across the country. So again, please don't look at them right now. The tax aid locator is down. The IRS locator is got a few sites on there because most sites have obviously closed for the season, but be prepared to start looking for them come around January. So I'll jump down to the next slide. And again, we wanted to kind of branch out to this one. For those now, we hope everybody will, at a minimum, provide information to those you serve about the great service they can do by filing a tax return and then providing them opportunities of where they can get their taxes done for free. But maybe you want to take that next step, and I really want to encourage you. It's such a wonderful opportunity, but maybe you can become a VITA TCE volunteer. We are just at the start, as Michael said in his introduction, as we are starting to ramp up training around the country. So it's not too late. In fact, right now is a perfect time. People are in your communities right now working to get tax preparations up, and they'll start having some in-person training in some locations. Others, they have wonderful online resources that you can use. But as you can imagine, doing this work provides a great return to those you serve in your community. I always like to tell you that it's not only helpful for those you serve, but there is some great value to you doing it. You'll learn a lot about taxes, which unfortunately or fortunately will be something that you'll need to use for the rest of your life. So it's a wonderful opportunity to learn. Of course, interacting with taxpayers and individuals in need is always something that is a valued life lesson. So there's an opportunity there. And as I said, volunteers are absolutely the key. And quite frankly, this program doesn't survive without those. And like every organization that depends on volunteers, COVID has hurt us dramatically. We've dropped about a third of our volunteers over the last couple of years. So we are quite frankly desperate. So if it's something you've been thinking about, I encourage you to take that next step, and we'll talk to you about how to do it. And I really want to sincerely make the plug for those who work in the disability community. Volunteering from you would brings extra value to this proposition, because as I know, working with people in the disability community over the years, know there's often a trust issue about certain organizations or organizations they're just not familiar with. And so if an individual with a disability finds a volunteer who's from within their disability community, it really goes a long way to making them trust the entire process and get their taxes done for free. And then more importantly to us, then spread the word about what a great resource this is. So again, a real pleasant request. If this is something that fits into your skill level, we would love to have you. And so let me go to the next slide. I believe we'll start providing you with more information on how you can become a volunteer. And I apologize, I'm stepping a little bit ahead, but again, you've heard what a great volunteer there is. I'm sorry, I think if we can go down to the next slide, there you go. I would start to mention some of this stuff. We're going to provide you, if you want to become a volunteer, with extensive training, both virtual and in person. You will not go into a site unprepared. You will be ready to do taxes. In addition, that we have tremendous training materials and resources that will be provided to you, so that again, when you're at a site, you'll have resources that you can check to make sure your answers are correct. And I do want to let you know that the volunteers need no experience. And I want to remind you too here just quickly to say, maybe you're thinking to yourself, boy, I see the value in tax preparation and I wish I could be a volunteer to help, but I just don't feel comfortable doing taxes. We need volunteers in all sorts of positions. We need volunteers that can, quite frankly, just help help greet people, get them started in the process. We also need people who have technology skills and it can maybe help us get our computers set up. So I don't want you to think that taxes are the only way you can help in these VITA and TC programs in your community. They need resources like all nonprofit type of organizations. So if you have the time and the desire to serve, please take a look at it. And so here was where I thought I was on the next slide. More resources for you to become a VITA or TC volunteer. First would be is if you are some of that almost 80% who are either familiar or very familiar with local sites in your community and you have a desire to serve, reach out to them. That's probably your most efficient and effective way. If you know your local United Way or your senior center has ARP volunteers doing taxes, reach out to them and say, I'd like to work with you and determine whether I could volunteer. So that's a great contact right off the bat. For those who are not familiar or not sure, that the right people to contact, here are two resources of how you can get your name put into our volunteer portal. The first one there on the second bullet is through our IRS online volunteer portal. And what you'll do there is you'll submit your name and tell us you're interested and where you're located. And then we will take that information and send it out to local partners in your community that are providing free tax preparation. And they will reach out to you and see what opportunities that you could collaborate on. In the same token, our wonderful partners at ARP have their own volunteer portal, and there's their information there. Again, if you want to work with them, maybe you want to work more with senior issues, retirements, pensions, by all means, reach out to ARP Tax Aid through that portal, and they will, again, reach out directly to you and see if they can't figure out a way to get you online as soon as possible. And then moving towards the end of our presentation, again, I said at the onset, this was the big ask. And this is a heavy lift. I'm not gonna tell you otherwise. Running a site is an intensive, laborious endeavor, but it is so important and it provides so much to those you serve. So I'd love for you to think about it. Maybe this isn't the year, but I would, even if we just plant the seed and think about it in the years to come, it would be a wonderful opportunity. So the things I want you to think about if you have a desire to explore this opportunity, one is there already service in your community? And part of me says if there already is good service in your community, then maybe the more important role then would be just to reach out to them and see if you could collaborate with them more. This is something we don't want to compete against each other. This is work that takes a lot of resources. So, our goal is if we can combine efforts, that's more productive. We like to call those coalitions that help together. So, if there is already somebody in your service area, reach out to them. But if they're not, then really give this an opportunity, because as you can imagine from those you serve and the populations we're trying to serve, this is not the population that can drive 30 or 50 miles to get this service done. They need it to be in a convenient location. And if you have that, that's probably the biggest thing we're looking for. Is it someplace that people trust in the community? Is it somewhere they can get to easily? And those are important factors. If you have those, please consider. Some of the resources that you would probably need to operate this successfully would be some staffing ability to allow some of your people to help with it, maybe not necessarily full time, but you can imagine there will be some logistics that they'll have to work out. If you have equipment, that's really critical. IRS will work with you if you don't, but if you have equipment, if you have computer lab, that really makes this effort much easier to accomplish. And of course, as I've told you multiple times now during this presentation, volunteers are critical. So if you have access to them, that makes the startup much easier. We, again, will work with you to try to find volunteers, but if you have a little cadre or know of others in your community, that really helps to get this going. And so, again, I'll jump down to the next slide. Again, once you take a minute to think about this and maybe determine whether this is a good fit for you and for your organization, then again, here's a couple places to do. As I mentioned, you can reach out to those sites that are already in your community, see if you can join with them. If you just want to, you don't know anybody in your community, or there is nothing in your community, you can send an email to us at partners@irs.gov, and we'll respond back to you. We have groups of individuals that's our job, to get people on board with new sites. And then, of course, our good friends at NDI who are doing this call, if you have some local issues, reach out to them. They have, I've provided them with some contact information, and they can help you on the next steps. And so then the last couple slides, just some additional resources here over the next slide or two. Here's information for you about free tax preparation, information for you. One is partners there. The second one is information you could share to taxpayers about what they'll encounter when they go to a free tax preparation site, whether they qualified. And then on the third one, what they would need to bring if they were able to access a local VITA TCE site in their community. And then again, more resources. Here's some publications about our free tax preparation, more information on becoming a volunteer, and then finally information on being a partner with us in our communities. And then if you go down the one last slide, just as a repeat for those with us last time, I just always wanted to share more information with you on some disability resources from the IRS. So I apologize that went a little bit longer than I thought, but Michael, I'll turn it back to you for final thoughts.
Great. Thank you, Don. This was a lot of great information, and great questions have been coming in the chat box and then via email. So thank you for sharing this information. And, you know, one of the things I want to share is, you know, as I've heard this information, I've been a VITA volunteer, been working in this space. I've learned new things through this presentation as well. And I think one of the things that Don had mentioned that I think is really important for folks to realize is that, you know, being a VITA volunteer or a TCE volunteer, free tax preparation volunteer, there was a year that I did not go through the certification. It was very busy and everything. And so I did not go and do the test that particular year. So I could not provide due taxes. But with my local coalition, I was able to volunteer and be a greeter. So I think that's an important piece to keep in mind. Is what Don had mentioned, is that there's a variety of ways that we can volunteer. We do have a few questions, and I know we're close on time. We'll be able to get through them all, but I do want to share a couple items first. First of all, I just want to remind you that if you're working with individuals and families, to make sure to share with them the information about getctc.org/NDI. And this is a simplified filing tool for the child tax credit and the third stimulus payment if folks haven't had it, did not receive the third stimulus payment. So you can go to getctc.org/NDI. It's very important. This particular site is open until, it says November 15th, but I think it's November 17th. But please pass this information along, as we have a couple weeks left. Next slide, please. And you'll receive these slides, but this is just some additional piece on the outreach and different links that you can go to share this important information about Get CTC to the individuals that you serve, particularly for those who have children and might qualify for the child tax credit. Next slide. I also shared here some additional resources and slides for you, or some additional resources. At the National Disability Institute, we do have some tax pages that are designated specific to this topic, and so this link will take you to that. That has a plethora of other resources that you can have if you're looking to host a VITA site, if you're looking to understand more about some of the specific questions on tax credits for individuals with disabilities, and if you're a VITA site already, that you can access as well. So please be sure to go there. The other piece too is that organizations, some do one of the three approaches and some do them all, right? So I think just sitting back and really reflecting on if you haven't promoted free tax preparation services in the past, please reach out to us so that we can make sure that if there is a coalition in your area that we connect you so you can get the promotional materials and start working with them to build a relationship to get a plan. Interested in becoming a VITA volunteer. I know a lot of organizations that serve individuals with disabilities have become VITA volunteers. And of course, the third is looking to possibly hosting a site in the future. So, and on our website, you'll, through the Empowered Cities link, you'll see examples of how different organizations have done each of those pieces. So with that, we got just a couple minutes for a couple questions, really quickly answers here. For the person who asked about funding for nonprofit organizations, feel free to send me an email or Kish Kasani and we can set up a call. We do not provide funding for organizations, but we'll see the coalition is in your area. But through our Center for Disability Inclusive Community Development, we also have resources that help organizations partner with financial institutions who might be able to provide support with helping with that piece of the VITA program. So please reach out to us. One of the other questions that came in is specifically about an agency and interested in providing VITA services. If that person, we will get your information and reach out to you directly. Don had gone over those pieces, but one of the pieces, Don, really quickly, if you can share an answer to, is there are no VITA sites in our area. How do we advocate to get this resource in our community? Do you have suggestions besides NDI that we could refer them to within their local areas to try to get VITA services in their area?
Right. So on one of the slides I talked about, I would send an email to partners@irs.gov, tell them your community that you're in and see if we can't get together with you to see if there's a possibility. I'd also suggest to just reach out to other organizations in your community. To me, when you have none in your community, what you need to do is kind of build a little coalition of organizations so everybody can bring a little bit of resources to the table, so it's not all dependent on one person. But my colleagues at SPEC would help you kind of work through that process if there's capabilities in your community. And then, Michael, one note I want to see. I saw one of the questions in the chat I want to just refer to. Somebody said, would people get these credits if they went to a paid tax preparer? And I just want to say that the hard thing about paid tax preparers is there are no guidelines on who can become a paid preparer. The definition of paid preparer for tax purposes is somebody paid them. So that's why we talk about our volunteers are certified and trained. So would most pay preparers get you those credits? Yes, but I don't want you to think that all will, because some of them are really predatory and are just doing it for the money. So that's why we strongly suggest sending them to one of our VITA TCE sites, who all of our sites do that electronically, which was another point in the chat. So just wanted to get that in, Michael.
Great. Thank you so much, Don. We really appreciate it. So this is really exciting. I know we're at time and we're going to close up here, and thank you for spending in a couple extra minutes with us. Please, if you have additional questions, please send them to askask@ndi-inc.org. Just want to remind you that please sign up for the next webinar that we'll have on December 1st at 3 p.m. And it's going to be on VITA program, Boost Capacity to Serve Taxpayers with Disabilities. Please join that session, as we are going to be sharing with you a lot of new tools and resources that will be available to help in your promotion of free tax preparation services for taxpayers with disabilities. There'll be some social media content, there'll be some flyers, and some other exciting items that you'll be able to access. So please feel free to sign up and join us for that webinar. Also, at the close of this webinar, you will get an evaluation, and we appreciate to hear from you any questions that you might have, or additional thoughts on additional comments you might have on future webinars. I want to say thank you to Don Dill and everyone at the Internal Revenue Service for all of their great support to help increase access to free tax preparation services to taxpayers with disabilities. We've seen an amazing impact over the years of this work, and so we really appreciate it, Don. And also would like to say thank you to my colleagues, Ashley Price, for helping with the webinar today, and of course, Kish Pisani. If we could just go to the slide with the contact information. Kish Pisani, thank you for all the work that you do. If you have any questions, you can also send them to Kish, and her email address is there. You can send us, and we will be able to get there in touch with you. Also, if you're looking to connect with the VITA site, you can go to the link that Don shared, but you also can reach out to us, and we can help as well if there is a coalition in your area. So with that, I want to say thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday, as we will be coming back together after the Thanksgiving holiday on December 1st. So thanks again. Remember, promote the child tax credit. Ask your friends, ask your coworkers, ask them all if they've heard about the child tax credit, and if they have children, did they check to see if they're eligible, and share with them the information on Get CTC. We're finding that a large number of individuals and family members with disabilities have not access to child tax credit. So please make sure to share that information. With that, I thank everyone, and I hope you all have a great day.